The bar reeked of cheap whiskey and broken promises. Cameron Wells shouldered through the scarred wooden door, every bone in his body screaming for rest after 16 hours of work that never seemed enough. The dim lighting blurred the faces around him. The jukebox wheezed out a forgotten blues tune. He was 3 steps from the exit when he heard it. A woman's voice, thick with alcohol, trying to sound firm and failing. 3 men leaned over a corner booth, their shadows swallowing her whole. A designer blazer hung crooked on her shoulders, manicured hands trembling around an empty glass. Her head dipped forward like a candle flame about to go out. One of them reached for her. She flinched. Something ancient and immovable woke in Cameron's chest. His calloused hands were already moving, his tired body suddenly electric with purpose. The confrontation lasted 90 seconds. When the men slunk away, she collapsed against him, dead weight and incoherent. No ID, no memory of where she lived. Just expensive clothes and vulnerability. He made the only choice he could. What he didn't know was that saving her would cost him everything, and she would burn down her entire world to give it back. Cameron's apartment was 10 minutes away. 5 flights of stairs with a broken elevator. She mumbled against his shoulder, expensive perfume mixing with alcohol. The autumn air bit at his face, keeping him alert despite bone-deep fatigue. At his door, he fumbled with the keys one-handed, praying Lucas hadn't woken. His 8-year-old son had already learned to carry fears no child should bear. He'd been a light sleeper since his mother died. The apartment was cramped but clean. The living room doubled as Cameron's bedroom, the pull-out couch his nightly bed. Lucas's tiny room held a twin mattress and a desk where the boy did homework under a lamp Cameron had repaired countless times. He laid the woman on the couch and covered her with a spare blanket. She turned onto her side, breathing deep and steady. She'd be fine, probably wake with a splitting headache, but fine. He checked on Lucas, sleeping peacefully, one arm flung over his head. Homework sat finished on the desk, pencil marks careful and precise. The boy worked so hard. Never complained. Never asked for things Cameron couldn't provide. Never questioned why they lived here while classmates had houses with yards. In the narrow kitchen with its 2-burner stove and miniature refrigerator, the clock read 2:17. 6 hours until his morning shift cleaning offices downtown. Then lunch delivery. Then back to Stellar Dynamics for evening security. 3 jobs that barely covered rent, Lucas's school expenses, and medical bills that still arrived 3 years after Rebecca's funeral. 3 jobs that kept him moving. Too busy to think about everything he'd lost. He left water and aspirin on the coffee table, then pulled the notebook from beneath the couch cushions. Pages worn, corners bent from constant use. 7 notebooks over 5 years. Each one crammed with designs and solutions nobody knew he could solve. In the beginning, right after Rebecca died, drawing kept him feeling like himself. Like he was still Cameron Wells, mechanical engineer, not just Cameron Wells, widower drowning in medical debt. As the years passed and his resume gap widened, the notebooks became something else. A secret garden where his real self still lived. Where his mind could stretch and create while his hands mopped floors and checked IDs. Tonight's automated inventory system flowed from his pencil. He'd been refining it for weeks, calculating load tolerances, dreaming about servo motors and wireless integration. It was good. He knew it was good. The kind of good that could earn patents and change industries. But it would stay in the notebook like all the others. Because Cameron Wells, the engineer, was dead. Cameron Wells, the security guard, couldn't afford to be anything else. He worked until his eyes burned, designs pouring out in those quiet hours when he remembered who he used to be. When he finally closed the notebook at 4:38, exhaustion pulled at him. Not enough sleep, never enough, but he'd learned to function on fumes, coffee, and stubborn refusal to let Lucas down. Movement jerked him awake. Gray morning light leaked through the windows. The woman sat upright on the couch, blanket clutched to her chest, wide confused eyes scanning the room. Cameron sat up slowly, careful not to startle her. She turned toward him, panic flashing across her face as she realized she was somewhere unfamiliar with someone she didn't know. Her hand pressed against her temple as the hangover made itself known. "It's okay. You're safe," Cameron said gently. "I'm Cameron. We were at Murphy's bar last night. You had trouble with some guys. I helped. You couldn't remember where you lived, so I brought you here. That's all." He gestured to the water. "There's aspirin. You'll probably want both." She studied him, then the apartment. The cramped space, mismatched furniture, the water stain on the ceiling the landlord kept promising to fix. The absence of anything unnecessary. A far cry from the world she clearly came from. She took the aspirin and swallowed half the water in one go. "Thank you," she said finally, voice rough from alcohol and sleep. "I don't remember much, just flashes. There were men. They were aggressive. I encouraged them to leave. They did." She checked herself discreetly. Cameron understood and didn't take offense. Satisfied she was unharmed, she looked around again, this time more observant. Her eyes lingered on Lucas's backpack by the door, the sneakers lined beneath it, the sparse kitchen. The notebook had slipped partially out from under the cushion. Her gaze caught on the technical drawings. Before anything else could be said, Lucas emerged in his school uniform, hair messy from sleep. He froze when he saw her. "It's okay, buddy," Cameron said, stepping protectively in front of him. "This lady needed help last night. She'll be leaving soon." Lucas nodded slowly, eyes wide with curiosity. "Is she okay, Dad?" "She's fine. Go start breakfast. I'll be there in a minute." Lucas hesitated, then went to the kitchen. The cereal box rustled. The fridge opened. The morning routine they'd perfected over 3 years. The woman watched, something like surprise and recognition crossing her face. "You have a son," she said softly. It wasn't a question. "Lucas, he's 8. I should call you a cab," Cameron said. "Or someone you know." She didn't answer. Instead, she stood slowly, steadying herself. She was shorter than he'd thought, but her posture carried authority. She moved to the notebook and picked it up before Cameron could stop her. Her eyes widened. "Did you draw this?" He gently took it back. "Just doodling. Let me call you that, cab." "That isn't doodling," she said sharply. "That's an automated inventory system. My engineering team has been working on something like this for 8 months and can't solve the load distribution." She stepped closer. "The distributed servo array and pressure-sensitive feedback loop. This is exactly what they need." "Where do you work?" she asked. "Several jobs," he said. "Cleaning, delivery, security." "Which building?" "Stellar Dynamics." Her eyes went wide. "My name is Vivian Harper. I'm the CEO of Stellar Dynamics." The floor seemed to tilt beneath him. She sat, making herself less intimidating. "Where did you learn to do this?" "It doesn't matter," he said quietly. "It matters," she replied. "That design solves my team's problem." He hesitated, then spoke. "I was a mechanical engineer. Baxter Technologies. 6 years. Lead automation engineer. Then my wife got sick. Stage 4 cancer. I quit. Used everything for treatment. When she died, I had a 2-year-old, no savings, medical debt, and a resume gap no one would touch." "How long at Stellar?" she asked. 3 years. Security desk. "I see you sometimes," she said softly. I should have looked. She wanted to see all his notebooks. "This isn't charity," she told him. "This is business." Lucas's small voice cut in. "You should listen to her, Dad. You're happy when you draw. Not any other time." Something cracked inside Cameron. "Fine," he said finally. "But not here." They agreed to meet later. That afternoon, Cameron stood outside Stellar Dynamics headquarters with 7 notebooks in his backpack. By the end of the day, everything had changed. And 3 days later, the problem began. The conference room felt colder than the rest of the building, the air heavy with judgment as Cameron sat at the long glass table with his notebooks stacked in front of him like a fragile shield. board members in tailored suits whispering while glancing at him with thinly veiled skepticism, faces he recognized as the same people who had walked past his security desk for years without ever seeing him, and when the door closed and the murmurs died, the silver-haired chairman spoke about optics, reputation, and the article implying an inappropriate relationship, words that felt sharper than accusations, and when they finally turned to him and asked why the company should believe his promotion was earned, Cameron answered without anger or pride, only tired honesty, opening his notebook and becoming what he had buried for years, an engineer again, explaining load distribution, redundancy systems, servo feedback loops, cost efficiencies, and real-world applications with a clarity that slowly drained the room of its doubt. 40 minutes of calm competence followed by silence so thick it rang in his ears, until he was asked why such talent had remained hidden for so long, and he replied simply that no one had been looking. And as he stepped out to wait for deliberation, he already knew this wasn't just about a job but about whether the world would finally acknowledge his worth. That night at home, Lucas asked if it had gone badly and Cameron admitted he didn't know, only promising that no matter what happened he would keep drawing, because that was the only version of himself his son ever saw truly alive. While across the city, Vivian stood alone in her office, knowing exactly what the board would demand and choosing to stand firm anyway, refusing to sacrifice a man's future to protect optics even when it meant risking her own position. And when the board finally voted to approve Cameron's role only if she resigned, she accepted without hesitation, meeting Cameron during his security shift to tell him the truth, that her stepping aside would protect him from suspicion and give him the chance he deserved. And though Cameron protested with a breaking voice, she reminded him that leadership meant choosing people over titles. And days later, when the announcement of her resignation hit the news and speculation flooded every headline, Cameron sat in silence as Lucas clung to him, asking if it was somehow his fault, and Cameron held him tight, promising that this was about adults making choices, not children paying prices. And when the message finally came confirming his start date in engineering, something inside Cameron shifted from survival to possibility. Months passed in a blur of long nights in the lab, patents filed, systems redesigned, respect earned through work rather than pity, and for the first time in years he slept without dread, watched Lucas build robots for school instead of hiding his dreams, and one evening received an invitation to a startup launch where Vivian stood on stage once more, not as a fallen executive but as a founder reborn. And as their eyes met across the room, Cameron understood that sometimes saving one person doesn't destroy a world, it simply reveals the courage it takes to build a better one.